Hello everyone, this is Dr. Anastasia Chopelas, the scientific healer, and today what I'm going to talk about are powerful techniques to not only know yourself, as my ancestor Socrates said, but also to accept yourself and show you how these are such powerful and empowering directives for you to do. And I'm going to give you a few steps in the process to help you discover ways for you to do that yourself. Socrates said was know thyself, and I was reading this with regards to the upcoming self-awareness month. And I thought, well, that's kind of like the first half of the directive. The second half of the directive is accept yourself. And why is that so darn important? A few years ago, let's say 2.5 decades ago, I was starting in a self-help group. And I thought to myself, when we got to step 4, which was making a moral and fearless inventory, that I already knew all my flaws because they were not only shoved in my face from childhood on, and I've mentioned this before, that it was the Greek way, that you just got criticized because, I mean, heavens forbid you get a compliment, you might get too big of an ego. And then if I ever said, Mom, I did this really well, here, look at my report card. Oh, you're just bragging now. So it's kind of ironic, right? And then I heard later my sister and I got together, and she said, yeah, Mom always criticized her, but always bragged about me. And likewise, my mom would always brag about my sister and criticize me, and also brag about my brothers. So I always felt like the broken child because of that. And of course, I attracted people that were willing to do me the favor and continue to criticize me. And not only that, but I also had a little inner voice that was doing it for me. And when I got to this moral and fearless inventory, which is step 4 of the 12 steps, it's really part of Christianity or really all religions, because you have to confess your sins, right? That's step 5. But step 4 is knowing what they are. And I decided that I knew mine very, very, very well. So I sat down and I said, well, it says inventory. It doesn't say criticism. So inventory also, when you take it, you don't only take your deficits, but you also make an inventory of your assets. So that's what I did. And this is really powerful for those of you who have never sat down and thought, well, what's so good about me? I know what's bad about me. What's so good about me? And what that does is it brings your life into balance. And there are several other benefits of knowing who you are, not just in the deficit column, but also in the asset column. And you start to understand that your assets are so much more than your deficits. I mean, we are all works in progress, but we are also amazing creations of the divine, and the divine does not make mistakes. You are who you are because you're supposed to be who you are. So here we are talking about, assets and deficits, and really the deficits are only deficits in your own mind's eye. And when I started to really take a good look at myself and discover who I really am, so knowing myself, as Socrates said, then the benefits that started to happen is, number 1, when others criticized me, I could listen without feeling hurt. Oh, that person doesn't like me, right? That was not my first thought. My first thought was, is it true what he or she is saying? And then I could discern whether it was the truth or not. Was it a reflection, like a reflection of them onto me? So were they projecting? Was it a projection? or was it reality? Right? So I started to really be able to discern that criticism, and I stopped being hurt by it. So as soon as you start removing like this burden off your shoulders of the criticism, the heavy criticism, like as it weighs down on you, as soon as you start relieving that burden, life changes dramatically. So I got a lot happier. I got a lot more energetic. I started doing things I never would do before. I took up painting. I took up, I started writing. I started doing all kinds of things. I've even joined websites where, I did physical challenges. That's doing things that I never imagined that I would ever do. And not only that, I was not ashamed of them, right? And that shame and guilt, those two things, they lower your frequency faster than anything. So when you know yourself and accept yourself, the shame completely disappears, right? The guilt completely disappears. These are really, really powerful techniques. And what are some of the other things that I did? I remember that one time I got on the phone with my mom, and I lived in Germany. I was about 40, 41 years old. This was when, basically calamity happened, and I got very sick and divorced and all of that. And what I did was she said some things to me that just hit me completely wrong. And I went outside I had a little postage stamp backyard, and I went outside and I took the little, prong digger, and I dug out every single dandelion in the backyard. And so I just like jammed that thing in there and plugged it out, and jammed it in, plugged it out. Every jam I was thinking, okay, that's coming out. That flaw is coming out. That flaw is coming out. And then after that, about a week later, I went to a foot reflexologist, very talented one, and she was rubbing in one place, and she goes, "Oh, you swallowed some anger." And I'm thinking to myself, no, I didn't swallow some anger. I swallowed it all. It's all sitting in there, doing its thing. So I went and I took a pillow and a plastic baseball bat, and I just took my anger out on it rather somewhere else. And I remember I continued for at least 20 minutes with all my strength, beating that poor pillow to death and yelling at the pillow and yelling at all of what I considered to be really injustices piled on me. So everything I was angry about for like 20 years, I pounded out of that pillow. And I did it for about 20, 25 minutes. I mean, I was sore for 3 days afterwards. But then what happened was my voice changed. It started modulating. Emotions started coming out in my voice. Because when you hold one emotion, you hold all of them in. Like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. It's really, really true. This is the other benefit of knowing yourself. By doing this moral and fearless asset inventory, I got to see who I really am on the positive. And shortly after that, I got divorced at that point. When I was a little girl, I thought I would marry my dream man and stay married to him. That didn't happen that way for me. And of course, I criticized myself constantly for it. The criticism is something that I took on because, other people that receive that kind of criticism, they just like let it roll off their back. Yeah, meh, whatever. Right? But I would take it to heart. So that was my wound, and that was what I needed to heal. And so this process of writing assets down, and letting all the anger out, letting all the frustration out, releasing it all, completely changed. Those are the two things that completely changed me and allowed me to understand myself. So then what I was getting to was after I got divorced, right, I started dating this guy who was okay. He was a professor, a couple of years older, and we did a lot of things together. And he, after about 3, 4 months, he started saying things like leveling criticisms, and I'm going like, well, what are you talking about? And so he would say, well, you're always telling me what to do. And I said, well, tell me one thing I told you what to do. And he couldn't think of anything. And so then he said something else like, he didn't like the little pooch on my belly. Like, really? Is that what you're reaching for? And I said, okay, so this is the balance. So now we have this balance scale of assets and deficits. And here are all my assets and here are all my deficits, right? And you're reaching all the way up into that upper pan, scrounging around for something to criticize me on. And I released him. I dated him for about 3, 4 months. We had some fun together, and then it was time to move on. And it didn't hurt my feelings. I just let him go. And that kind of thing continued. So what happened was that the old style of female waiting for the approval of the man, right? That was the old way. I choose you. Instead of him choosing me, I decided to do the choosing. That set my whole life on a completely different balance, a completely different setup. So knowing myself empowered me in such a way, and I've seen this happen over and over with other people, it empowers you in such a way that you are basically immune to the criticism of others, right? Because you know who you are. So if they say something, you can just go, meh, that's not me, and you can even talk about it without getting emotional, number one. And number two, you feel better about yourself, right? You look in the mirror and you go, like, I'll get up in the morning and I'll look in the mirror and I'll go, dang, you look pretty good today. Yeah, your eyes are a little swollen, but you look pretty good today, instead of getting up in the morning and going, oh, who is that, right? So even though I'm getting older and older and I can see it in my face, I'll still say, dang, you look pretty good today. Where before I would look and all I would see was the flaws. I still have a little fat here on my underarm. I mean, they flap around really, but that's because it's 66-year-old skin there, and it got loose. So that's the benefits of knowing yourself and accepting yourself. And the other benefit I forgot to add, the other benefit is now when you look at other people and they've got flaws, you can accept them too. I got to be gentler with other people, more accepting of other people, and I got along better with other people. So I could be in a room of a lot of people like yakking and saying all kinds of stuff, and instead of rolling my eyes, I would just kind of listen to see what was happening. And I didn't take anything personally, whatever they said, right? So those are the huge, huge benefits of having of having this particular thing, of knowing yourself, accepting yourself. And I'll reiterate the processes I went through. The first is to write a moral and fearless inventory, not of your deficits, but your assets. Second is to find a way to release that inner anger and inner disappointment, the shame and the guilt. And the third, which I haven't mentioned yet, the third way is to do a small meditation or healing in the morning. If you don't do the energetic steps that I have taught in many of my previous videos, is to listen to a little audio that helps you bring you back to yourself, gets you centered. So centered means that you look at the world from the inside out rather than seeing yourself from the outside in. In other words, you are looking at yourself through other people's eyes rather than deciding for yourself who you are. And that is extremely powerful, is to get centered. So the way you do that is you go to scientifichealer.com/wake up brain. And I've got the link right below, so you can go right to it, and you'll get the first video is Wake Up Your Brain. That's an 11-minute video or audio that will help you get centered, and it brings you deep into trance and out in 11 minutes. And it's very relaxing, and it helps your brain function really well. And then the second one helps release emotions, and that comes, I don't know, in a day or two, and it is a powerful energy healing and is really great for listening to as you're falling asleep. Doesn't matter if you're asleep or not when you listen. It's 14 minutes, and it helps clear out all those old heavily baggaged emotions. Right, so that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please give it some 5-star or thumbs up love. Share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. So see you next week, same time, same place.